Hey y'all.
Hey y'all.
It's Destiny.
And it's Eden.
And today we are going to be having a little conversation about femininity.
So this has been a topic that me and Destiny have really been into lately. And I know that a lot of times when you watch videos about femininity, a lot of people really get into like sound very like, spiritual and university and manifesty. And
while it can get really like non-biblical really quick. Femininity is something, and masculinity are both things that are very divine. I think they're things that are very holy, things that God placed in us, in the man and the female. And so it shouldn't be wrong to dive into your femininity.
When God is the one who created male and female, like God is the one who created those distinct differences between the male and the female. There's obviously male energy and there's female energy. And that's something that we shouldn't run away from just because we're Christian.
Yeah, today we're going to be diving into what the Bible says about femininity. What really caused me to want to dive into this is because I was just kind of reflecting over my life and in all honesty, just reflecting over like the reasoning behind why I personally haven't been able to attract my husband yet. So in my mind, I was just thinking like, okay, there has to be an aspect of femininity that I am not operating in because I haven't been able to attract that proper masculine mate for me yet.
But I think it's not even just about when you research it, when you learn about it, it's not just about attracting a man. It's about the feminine and the masculine.
Right.
And it's about what you're either repelling away from you
or what you're attracting. And I was going to hop into that. And what I was going to say is when I started to study femininity even more, I realized that I really was operating in my femininity. But because of what we as a society think about femininity, for so long, I thought I wasn't operating properly in it.
I just want to preface that like we're so passionate about this because I think one thing that we have witnessed, not only in other Christian women, but in ourselves first, what we've really witnessed is that like a lot of times us women, especially us young women, because our generation, Gen Z, because we're so jealous for God, jealous? Because we're so zealous for God and because we're so like passionate about this thing and it's like a new movement that's been taking place for the past few years. I feel like because there's so many young women like us that are coming into Christ, it's like when we come into our relationships with Christ, it's like you lose your feminine.
Yeah.
And I think it's because like this is going to be like a whole thing for me and Destiny. So this is not going to be our first video on this. But when you really research the feminine, what you learn is that like feminine energy is not guarded.
Right.
And I think when you become a Christian, especially as a woman, because there are so many sacrifices that we have to make, a lot of us choose to become abstinent. A lot of us just become really strict, which is great. But it
brings out this masculinity.
Yeah, it brings out a masculine energy
because
in you.
A lot of the time we're listening to men and we're going by what men say that we should do whenever we approach our relationship to God. And really, because we operate so differently and we're hardwired so differently, a lot of the things that they can do don't work properly for us.
Right.
And that's how you can end up in a space where you're disillusioned with your relationship with God and you feel like you're not relating to him properly because you're trying to relate to him out of a masculine mindset instead of a feminine mindset.
Right.
And so that's really, forget a man, forget all these other things that people make femininity about. It's really about operating in the way that God designed you to divinely operate.
Yeah.
So whenever I first started researching femininity, the main thing that kept coming up was that the main difference between masculinity and femininity is that the masculine gives, the feminine receives. And even in biology, that makes sense.
Right.
Whenever it comes to a man and a woman doing intimate things,
procreating,
the masculine gives the seed, the woman receives the seed, and she nurtures. And that's taking it a step further. The feminine doesn't just receive, but she receives and she nurtures what she's given. and she creates something beautiful out of the small things that she receives. That's really the main thing that really changed my life. Was I realized, even though I do feel like I wasn't operating as masculinely as I thought I was operating, one of the main things that I realized I wasn't operating in was in the mindset of receiving and not having to provide for myself.
Yeah.
A revelation that God gave me deeply recently is that that's the reason why we as the church are called the bride of Christ. And that's the reason why we are given this feminine characteristic, because even though there are men in the body, we are all collectively called to be the bride, which is a very feminine thing, because we as a church, we're supposed to rely solely on God, on Jesus to provide, and we sit back and receive. It's not that we sit back and receive, because obviously you have to do some action and do some things, but ultimately we should not be relying on ourselves for provision, but relying on God to give us everything that we need. If you don't know anything about femininity and anything about masculinity, that's one of the main characteristics about those two energies.
Yeah.
And I'm going to refer to them as energies throughout the video. Please, if you are a person who hears the word energy or hears all these metaphysical terms and you automatically start thinking, oh, you're being hyper spiritual or you're saying things that are not biblical.
Right.
God created energy.
Right.
God created matter. God created science for that matter. So whenever we say these terms, you really have to renew your mind about what you've learned about hearing these terms. Energy is something that's godly. So when I say masculine energy, feminine energy, it's something that's godly. It's not something that's spiritual. So that's just a disclaimer. So those are the main characteristics of masculinity and femininity, but there are other characteristics that kind of make up each energy. Like we said earlier, whenever I watched videos about femininity or whenever I did my research, I didn't really understand how this was referenced in the Bible, because one thing that I always do as a very scientific person, I'm a logical thinker. I love science. I believe in science, but I always try to back it up with the Word of God, because I believe the Word of God touches every single aspect of life, even science. And so in my mind, I was thinking, okay, I'm hearing all these scientific terms. I'm hearing all these spiritual things that all these spiritual people are talking about, but where is there proof for all these things in the Bible? And so when I started thinking about that, God drew me to Proverbs 31, of course, because that is our ultimate description of not just what a wife should look like, but really how a godly woman should operate herself. Yeah. As I was reading Proverbs 31, God started giving me revelation about how each thing that is mentioned in Proverbs 31 is an example of how we are supposed to operate in our true feminine energy. And so we're probably going to have to split this into two parts. And so instead of trying to break all those 31 verses down in this one video, I'm going to start with the first half, probably going to the second half in another video. So make sure y'all stay tuned for that. If you're not familiar with Proverbs 31 is basically a letter from a mother to her son writing about what he should look for in a virtuous wife. This whole description of a virtuous wife starts in Proverbs 31:10. So it says, a wife of noble character who can find. She is worth far more than rubies. So the first thing that came to my mind when I read that was, okay, that means that a true feminine woman knows her worth. Mm-hmm. She knows it. And it's not that she goes around bragging about it and she goes around with this inflated view of herself, but she literally, like, if something is worth far more than rubies, it's something that you value. It's something that is respected. Like, you can't take that value away from a ruby. A ruby will always be valuable. Yeah. And so I feel like that's the first key to walking in biblical femininity, is to know your worth. Yeah. And the next verse says, her husband has full confidence in her and lacks nothing of value. And I think that just really hits me, because that tells me that, like, when you're in your true biblical femininity, you have value. It's kind of like what Destiny was saying, like, you know your worth, but it's also like you have to know your value and you have to be confident in that value. I have seen, just like on TikTok and social media or whatever, there are so many girls talking about, like, oh, our value, know your worth, but it's like, what worth are you truly bringing? Okay, yeah, you know your worth, but, like, do you really have worth that you're bringing to the table? Because I think a lot of us
women in general, not even just Christian women, a lot of us women, like we expect so much of the man,
but it's you like, have no expectations.
Exactly. And I think that's something that I've been trying to work on in myself as I'm like praying for my future husband and just setting my expectations towards that goal that I have in life. I'm starting to realize like, okay, Eden, you have all these expectations for your future husband, for the man that's going to come into your life. But do you have those same expectations for yourself? Right? Do you have that same value that you're expecting him to bring to the table? So I think this is just puts us back in that awareness of like, okay, yeah, a true wife brings value, but like, are you being that true virtuous wife?
It says her husband has full confidence in her. Are you being a woman that your husband can have confidence in you? Your husband knows that you are valuable. Your husband literally draws his confidence from you because he knows you're reliable. He knows he can depend on you to be that reliable type of woman.
Right. That's a great setting for the rest of what we're about to be talking about, because I feel like the rest of Proverbs 31 literally teaches you how to be that virtuous wife that your husband can have confidence in.
Right. So moving into Proverbs 31:12, it says she brings him good, not harm, all the days of her life. The third key to biblical femininity is that the feminine attracts goodness and not harm. If you are a woman, and if you are looking at your life and you are realizing that you're attracting a lot of harmful things to you, you're attracting harmful men, you're attracting harmful friendships, you're attracting harm, you're probably not operating fully in your femininity. Yeah. Because the feminine should attract good things to her. The feminine should attract goodness, good people, good friendships. Yeah. That's when I really realized that I wasn't as masculine as I thought I was, because I do feel like I attract good things. Yeah. I have amazing friendships, and I was even telling Eden that although I haven't found my husband yet, I have never dealt with a man who has ever tried to harm me in any kind of way, not emotionally, not physically. I honestly have very good relationships with men, even though none of them have developed into anything further, but they've been super respectful to me. Yeah. They've just been super good to me in the past. And so I feel like that's a key marker that you're operating in your femininity, is when you attract good things and not harmful things. Yeah. Proverbs 31:13 says she selects wool and flax and works with eager hands. Key number 4 is that the feminine is productive. A true feminine woman is a busybody. She is not lazy. Oh, and this was something that honestly, like, I was like, thank you, God, that your word says this. Yeah. Because one of the main things that I see a lot in our generation is kind of what we were just talking about, is that because you think you're diving into your femininity more by just sitting back and allowing a man to do everything for you. You don't have to work. You want to have a soft life and you want to lay at home and not do anything all day. But that is so anti-Bible. Yeah. That is so anti-God. You are not operating in your femininity if you're lazy. There's such a thing as toxic femininity, and I feel like that's one of those things.
It's like the same thing as toxic masculinity. Exactly. There's toxic femininity too.
Femininity. We are called to work with eager hands. We're called to do things to build not just ourselves but our future families. Like, how can you properly nurture a family if you're lazy? Yeah. That's a key marker of femininity, is a woman who's not an overworker, but a woman who's not lazy. A woman who knows how to put her hand to the plow and get
she works done diligently at what she has her mind set to do.
Exactly.
So moving into Proverbs 31:15, it says, she gets up while it is still night. She provides food for her family and portions for her female servants. So key number 5 is the feminine energy is prepared and plans ahead.
This is also another thing that kind of clocked me a little bit, because oftentimes, like, if you watched our previous video, we were talking about how 2025 was such a bad year. And I feel like one of the main things that made it so bad for me is because I was never prepared for my day. Like, I feel like beforehand, I would always have my clothes set out the night before. I would know what I had planned the next day. Last year, I was literally waking up, didn't know what I had planned for that day. There would be times where I would even forget what classes I had for that day because I was just so unprepared.
Yeah.
And so I've even felt lately, as I've gotten back into that mindset of making sure that I'm prepared for my day, making sure I know what's going on the next day, taking Sunday to sit down and plan my days and write everything in my planner and just make sure that I am planning ahead. I've felt myself leaning more into that feminine energy because whenever you are stressed, you automatically switch into your masculine.
Yeah.
The feminine is not stressed. The feminine doesn't move quickly. The feminine is not a frantic person. The feminine has to move fluidly and has to move gracefully. And how can you move gracefully if you're always frantic and you don't know what's going on next? And so what helps us with that is to plan ahead and make sure that we are prepared for what's going on in our lives.
Yeah.
Femininity key number 6 is found in Proverbs 31:16-18. It says, she considers a field and buys it out of her earnings. She plants a vineyard. She sets about her work vigorously. Her arms are strong for her tasks. She sees that her trading is profitable and her lamp does not go out at night. So this shows us that the feminine is very shrewd. She's clever and she's sharp. And that's something that I also feel like I don't ever hear a lot of people say whenever they're talking about femininity. Whenever people think about operating in their femininity, they think of this clueless girl who doesn't know what's going on and she's just floating about the world and da-da-da-da-da. That's not true femininity. That, again, is an example of toxic femininity. Yeah. A true feminine woman is not clueless. Yeah. She knows what's going on. She's sharp. She has a sharp mind. She's one of those clever women. Like,
even if you think about it, like another one of the like adjectives that is given a feminine trait in the Bible is literally wisdom. Yeah. Like wisdom is literally given.
Wisdom is always described as a woman.
So, and I think that shows like women, when we're in our true feminine energy, we are very wise. Like we're very clever. And I think even like Destiny was talking about where it steps into toxic femininity is, my dad mentioned this in church another Sunday, but he was talking about how us women kind of like, we need to watch how that can really turn into manipulation, because we are so wise and we are so clever that a lot of times we know how to use that to manipulate
and get what we want.
Right. So that's something that you have to watch, because I think when you really step into your feminine, you become very wise and very you become very clever and very wise, but it can turn into manipulation easily. So that's something that you have to watch.
Exactly. Key number 7 is found in Proverbs 31:20. And it says, she opens her arms to the poor and extends her hands to the needy. So from this, we see that a true feminine woman is generous and kind. That's also something that God kind of clocked me on. And I feel like that was one of the main things that I was missing in my femininity, is that a lot of the time I found myself being very selfish and not wanting to share things with other people. And that is rooted in a lot of different things. But I have found myself feeling more feminine and feeling just more free when I started being more generous. Yeah. And Eden knows that I struggle so badly with sharing. Yeah. But I think
that's her biggest toxic trait.
Yeah, that's my biggest thing, is that I struggle really bad with sharing. But I think you know that I've been working on that. She's gotten better. I've been working on that so much, and I found myself feeling so much more free and so much more feminine and graceful whenever I really set my heart on being generous to other people, because at the end of the day, as much as I may not want to share, there's plenty to share. Yeah. And so I feel like that even attracts, like we were saying earlier, the feminine attracts, and that attracts good things to you whenever you have a generous heart. And that also moves into being kind. It says she gives to the needy. And so you have to be a generous and kind person. You have to be an empathetic person who looks at people and you're able to not just sympathize with them, but you can put yourself in their shoes, and the kindness that flows out of that is a very feminine thing.
And I think that even steps into like, I think a lot of us women, as when we step into our Christianity, into our relationships with God, like I said earlier, you kind of become so guarded and you become really strict. Then it also creates,
you can become mean.
Yeah, it creates a very mean spirit. Yeah. I can't tell you how many like Christian women, young Christian women that I know that like they have a mean spirit. And I get it. It's because we become so guarded and we become so strict. And you also just become so zealous about the word of God and you want to save souls and all that. But like, you have to remember that's not saying that that's not for us women to be rude like that and to have.
I think it's for anybody to have a mean spirit.
It's not. God calls us to be loving. God calls us to be generous, to be kind, just like we're saying. But especially as a woman, I think it just takes you so much out of your feminine energy when you're rude and you're mean and you're not forgiving. And exactly. I think a lot of us wonder why we can't attract a man and why we can't attract the right person. It's because you're rude. And no man wants to talk to a rude woman.
I've noticed like a lot of women don't know why they can't attract people, but they have a very mean spirit.
Yeah.
And so I feel like that makes you masculine whenever you have, not saying that the masculine is mean, but the masculine is more strict. And so whenever you're operating in that strictness, it creates this masculinity in you, and it's just not feminine.
We're not saying this to judge anyone, because both of us have been through this stage. Yeah. I was in a stage where I was rude. I was mean to any man that approached me. I did not care. And I think, honestly, every woman needs to go through that stage. You need to go through that stage where, not that you need to, but it was beneficial for me because I feel like it taught me how to guard my heart. But now that I know how to guard my heart in the right way, I'm finding the balance of still learning to be kind, but just still knowing that there are boundaries. But I'm still like, I can say now that I'm very much way more of a kind person than I was in the past, as I've stepped more into my feminine energy.
So in our last key that we're going to discuss for today, this is found in Proverbs 31:22, where it says, "She makes coverings for her bed. She is clothed in fine linen and purple." Through this, we see that the feminine is resourceful. The feminine is also elegant, and she is an adorned woman.
Yes.
This woman makes sure that she always presents herself well.
Yes.
And y'all, I cannot stress this enough. We were raised by a mother who always taught us the importance of making sure that wherever you go, you are presenting yourself well.
Yes.
Because not only are you presenting yourself, you're presenting your family, but also if you're a Christian, you're presenting God. You are a representation of God in the earth. And so if you are not presenting yourself well, how do you expect people to respect you or look at you like you are worthy of respect if it looks like you don't respect yourself?
Right.
And so I feel like adorning yourself, and you don't have to be dressed to the nines all day. Like I have on a sweatsuit right now.
Right.
But just make sure that if you saw a person out in public wearing the same thing that you are wearing, what would you think?
I think it's even just about like attracting good things to you. Mm-hmm. No, I'm trying to find a good way to say this, but please don't take any offense to this. But humans are visual creatures.
Right.
Humans are going to want to give more resources to the person that looks more put together.
Right.
I think it's kind of like people say, kind of like pretty privilege, but you don't have to be pretty to put yourself together.
Exactly.
I think it's like because we are such visual creatures, we're just more attracted to things that look better.
Exactly.
And that's just our nature as humans. Mm-hmm. And so I think you're taking away some of your opportunities that you could be receiving because you're not adorning yourself. I think it's even like our mom taught us. Like we said, you don't have to put on a dress every day. You don't have to dress to the nines every day. But even just as simple, you have to find convenient ways to adorn yourself every day.
Even if it's as simple as waking up and brushing your hair in the morning.
Never, guys, please. This is something I am very passionate about.
Unpopular opinion.
Please. I know us Black women, we like to take care of our hair. We like to keep it protected. Please stop walking out in bonnets.
Yeah, I'm sorry, y'all.
Guys, please.
I'm sorry, because I know that I get you're trying to protect your hair. I get it. I get that you shouldn't care what people think about you. I get that people shouldn't judge you for wearing certain things, but they do. And
that's just human nature, and there's nothing you can do about it.
Exactly. Why invite the judgment of other people? Why invite people to look down on you? Why invite people to perpetuate stereotypes about us? don't fit the stereotype. Go against the stereotype. Do something that makes yourself look different. Do something. At the end of the day, bonnets are house clothes. You wouldn't wear your house shoes outside. You wouldn't wear a robe outside. So why are we wearing bonnets outside?
And something that I even do, just honestly, just on days when I'm especially feeling bad, but not even days when I'm especially feeling bad, but like something I've tried to put into practice every single day is I don't even walk around the house looking a mess. And this might sound crazy, but Destiny knows, like I will look a mess for a few hours, maybe in the morning, but at some point of the day, I'm going to get up, I'm going to brush my hair back, I'm going to put on a little lounge set, I'm going to do something. I don't care if it's no one around. It could be only me in the house, but I'm going to do something to adorn myself every day. And it literally puts you back in your feminine, and it just makes you feel better about yourself.
Forget what other people think. It makes you feel more confident. Like, why would you want to walk around feeling like, oh, I look a mess? Like, it makes you feel better, and it helps you in your social interactions with other people, because when you feel good about yourself, that flows into how you treat other people.
And for girls who don't like to wear makeup, even there's a stage where I didn't like to wear makeup at all, but one thing you can do is even a little bit of mascara, a little bit of lip gloss, even a little bit of blush on your face.
For some girls are very naturally pretty. Sometimes all you need is a good moisturizer to add some dew to your skin.
And every girl, I don't care if you're Beyonce, every girl needs a little bit of lip gloss. Put on, even if you have perfect skin and you don't need any makeup, put on a little bit of lip gloss. Like, there's something that you can do to adorn yourself and make yourself feel good. Like, it's not just about the way other people view you, it's about you at the end of the day. And what we might discuss later is like how being in your feminine energy makes you more confident. And it's kind of like tit for tat, like being more confident puts you into your feminine energy. And so I think it's like, how are you going to feel confident if you're looking a hot mess? Like, I want to reinstate that, like, we are not trying to be judgmental. We are not trying, like, please don't take any offense.
A part of stepping into your femininity is about holding yourself to a higher standard. So you cannot continue to hold yourself and allow yourself to live by these low standards and expect you to reap all the benefits of being feminine. It doesn't work that way. We said earlier, we are going to discuss the other half of Proverbs 31 in another video, but we just kind of wanted to whet y'all's appetite a little bit and really introduce you to the topic of biblical femininity and how we are, as women, are called to live this way. It's a part of being a virtuous woman. It's not an optional thing, to be honest. If we want to live an optimal life as women,
it is optional, but not if you want to live an optimal life as a woman of God.
Live an optimal life. So we hope this video helped you. Please stay tuned for part 2, and we will see y'all in the next one.
Bye.